Hi, I'm Rabesh. I'm a hedge fund accountant. I've been doing this for the best part of 20 years, and I've decided to go forth and put together a three-part series on interviewing for hedge fund finance roles and the best way of succeeding in those interviews. I have decided to split it into three parts. So this part would be the part one, which would be preparing for a hedge fund finance interview. Part two would be the interview itself, and part three would be post interview, which a lot of people forget about. All of this is based on my 20 odd years worth of experience being both the interviewer and the interviewee. And hopefully, there's some good pieces of information here and some gold nuggets I feel that will help you succeed when you are preparing or about to take on some hedge fund finance interviews. Obviously, you can tailor this slightly to your particular industry or your particular sector. You may not necessarily be in the hedge fund finance world, but I feel like there will be something there for everyone. And a lot of this stuff is 101 stuff, but again, based on my experience, especially recently when I've been interviewing people, you'd be surprised at the sort of mistakes people make. So hopefully, this will help when you're about to interview with an organization. So firstly, understand the organization and understand the interviewer. I can't emphasize how important that is. The number of people that just turn up to these interviews just feeling like it's another organization. They don't understand the culture. They don't really understand the history. They don't understand the mission statement. They don't understand what the organization stands for, what the USP is, all those sort of things. And there's plenty of tools out there online to use as your research guide. But these are the sort of questions that will come out in these interviews. What do you understand about the organization? Why do you want to work for an organization like ours? What makes us stand out against another company? So really understand the culture and the history and the blueprint of the organization you're interviewing. You can use the company websites, about us sections, company financials, things like that. And yeah, really understand what it is that the company does well, because again, these are the sort of things that you'll be discussing during the interview. Also, try and get a gauge of what the interviewer is like and who he is or who she is. Again, you can use LinkedIn, you can speak to an agency if you're being represented by an agent, because developing a connection, developing a rapport with the interviewer is super, super important. Understanding his or her mindset, understanding even his or her interests, and developing that little bit of a connection can give you an edge. So please do make use of LinkedIn, or please try and find out who's going to be interviewing you, because I feel that's going to be super important as well. The next thing you want to do is understand your CV. Make sure you know exactly what's on your CV. Now, again, there's a lot of people that use agencies or use AI to sort of put together their CVs, which is completely fine, but just make sure you know what's on there. Don't fabricate anything. Do not exaggerate stuff. The number of people I saw this period who spoke about products in a product control environment that didn't understand products, that didn't understand how they worked or how they were traded, and simply put it on their CV because it sounded very funky and very interesting. Things like a forward volatility agreement or gold contracts or total return swaps, exotics, all sounds very interesting and very, very funky, very sexy, but had no real concept of what they were and how they worked. So don't put anything on there that you're not comfortable talking about during an interview phase. So really understand your CV and make sure you're comfortable with everything on there. The next thing I would advise is to have a broad understanding of what's going on in the economy. You've got to know what's going on in broader environments. Things like the price of gold, where the S&P 500 is, why Bitcoin is trading at the price it's trading at. So what I'm trying to emphasize is don't just know the price of the FTSE, don't just know the price of a commodity or an index. Why is the price of gold where it is? Something like the price of gold recently breached $4,000. The price of gold is a function of interest rates or a fear factor index or, X, Y, and Z. Have an argument I say argument, but make sure you can substantiate everything you're saying. So you don't want to give one word answers. You don't want to bang on. It's not war and peace. You want to be somewhere in the middle, right? So you want to say the price of gold is X. It's done this recently. This is why it's done this. And this is what I think will happen in the future. But obviously that's sort of a broader answer, but you've got to understand what's going on in the wider world. You know, you're interviewing for a finance role. You need to know this sort of stuff. And, you know, there's plenty of resources out there. Again, a lot of broadsheets. You've got The Economist. I would not recommend The Sun. I would not recommend the Daily Express. Not good sources for this sort of stuff. You can have a look at websites online. There's plenty of material to give you an edge. There are websites out there. Zero Hedge, I feel, is a bit of an edge case. There's a lot of extreme stuff on there, but it has a very creative way of thinking, I think. So again, worth a look. But broader answer is have a good idea of what's going on in the world. It doesn't have to be too political, but if you're interviewing for a finance role, 101 stuff, you've got to know what's going on out there. The final thing, which I think gets probably asked 99% of the time, is why you're here. You know, why are you leaving your previous organization? Never, ever disparage a previous employer. It just never goes down well. It's not a good look. Even if you hate what you're doing right now at a previous place of employment, you never bring that out in an interview, but always have an answer prepared of why you want to move. So something along the lines of, you know, I feel in my previous place I cannot grow any further. I'm someone that likes to learn and develop and grow and constantly stay on top of new and interesting things, and I feel like I might have plateaued after X many years. Something along those lines. Obviously, if you have a better answer, then, you know, feel free to use your own. But this is something that will always be asked throughout the different stages of the interview. Why are you looking to move? You know, obviously, I mean, never ever say for the money. That's probably the worst answer you can provide. Never mention money during the interview phase, unless you're specifically asked that, or it gets to the sort of the HR piece, which is towards the end. But yeah, why are you looking to leave? And really think beforehand about the sort of answer you want to give. Yeah, like I say, you know, with all this sort of stuff, not just in interviews, but with life, you know, failing to prepare to fail. It's 100% true. And, you know, you want to give your chance or yourself the best possible chance of succeeding. So hopefully this was useful. I'm going to do a part 2 soon, which is the interview itself and how to best navigate that, and then a part 3 on what to do post-interview, because like I mentioned, a lot of people forget that piece, and again, that will give you the best possible chance of succeeding. If there's anything in this video that you liked or made a bit of sense, please do like and subscribe. It really does something to the YouTube algorithm. And again, it reaches other people like yourself, and it obviously helps me out a bit. So I really appreciate that. Any comments, please stick it below, and let's see how well these videos do and how well I can hopefully help you. Hope this was good. Look out for the next couple of parts, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.